I never questioned my place in the family until the Tuesday morning I borrowed my father's phone to check his calendar. Mine had died during my commute, and I needed to confirm whether he could make dinner that evening at my apartment. He was in the shower, and his device sat on the kitchen counter, unlocked and waiting. The notification banner appeared as I opened the calendar app. A group chat named Real Family, with 17 unread messages. My thumb hovered over the screen. I had never seen this chat before, and the name alone made my stomach twist with something I could not immediately identify. I opened it. The messages stretched back 3 months. My father, my brothers, Julian and Marcus, and my uncle Vincent comprised the entire membership. They discussed investments, property decisions, family gatherings I had attended without knowing these parallel conversations existed. But the most recent exchange made my hands shake. Marcus had written, "Dad confirmed the trust distribution. 3-way split as discussed." Julian responded, "Finally, $750 each works perfectly for my timeline." My father's message appeared last, time-stamped from the previous evening while I had been watching television in the next room. "Don't mention it to Bethany. She'll just create drama." Vincent had replied with a thumbs-up emoji.
I stood in my childhood kitchen, the same kitchen where I had helped my mother prepare countless meals before she passed, where I had done homework at the table, where I had celebrated every milestone, and felt the ground shift beneath me. $750,000 times 3. That totaled $2,250,000 being distributed among my brothers while I received nothing. The shower shut off upstairs.
I closed the messages, returned to the calendar, and memorized what I had seen. Every word, every number, every casual dismissal of my existence. My father emerged 20 minutes later, dressed in the charcoal suit he wore to the pharmaceutical distribution company he had built over 30 years. I had worked there every summer during college, learning the business from the warehouse floor up. After graduating with my degree in supply chain management, I had joined the company full-time, working alongside my brothers in different departments. "Can you make dinner tonight?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "7 works for me," he said, pouring coffee into his travel mug. "Your place?" "Yes." I handed him his phone. Calendar confirmed. He took the device without checking it, without suspecting that his youngest child, his only daughter, had just discovered how little she mattered. I drove to work in my practical sedan, the same car I had purchased 3 years earlier with my own money. Julian drove a luxury vehicle our father had gifted him for his 30th birthday. Marcus received a down payment on his house. I received praise for being independent and not asking for handouts. The pharmaceutical distribution company occupied a sprawling facility on the industrial edge of Portland. Our family business had grown from a small operation my grandfather started in 1968 to a regional powerhouse with 200 employees. My father served as president. Julian managed operations. Marcus headed sales. I worked in logistics coordination, a position I had earned through competence rather than nepotism, or so I had believed. I parked in my assigned spot, not close to the executive entrance like my brothers, but in the general employee lot, and walked through the front doors at 8:15 a.m. "Morning, Bethany." Kristen from accounting waved as I passed her desk. "Morning." I managed a smile that felt like glass on my face. My office was small but functional, with a window overlooking the loading docks. I had decorated it with plants and a few personal photographs. One showed my mother and me at my college graduation, both of us grinning despite her illness already showing in her thinning frame. She had died 6 months later, leaving my father with 3 children and a business that consumed him. I had thought grief united us. I had thought working together strengthened our bonds. I had thought being the only daughter made me special, protected, valued differently than my brothers, but equally loved. I opened my laptop and began my actual work for the day. Purchase orders, shipment tracking, supplier negotiations. I had optimized our logistics network to save the company hundreds of thousands annually. I had implemented new inventory systems. I had trained half the warehouse staff personally. Julian appeared in my doorway at 9:30. Dad wants to meet about the Portland expansion at 10. I'll be there. I did not look up from my screen. You okay? You seem off. Fine, just focused. He lingered for a moment, then left. Julian was 33, married with 2 children, comfortable in his position as the eldest son. He had inherited our father's height and commanding presence. Marcus, 31, shared our mother's coloring and easy charm. Then there was me, 27, single, competent, and apparently disposable. The meeting proceeded as expected. My father outlined plans to open a second distribution center. Julian presented operational requirements. Marcus discussed client acquisition strategies. I provided logistics analysis that would make the expansion viable. Excellent work, Bethany, my father said when I finished my presentation. This is exactly why you're invaluable to this company. Invaluable to the company, just not to the family. I smiled, I nodded. I collected my materials and returned to my office, where I closed the door and allowed myself 30 seconds of fury before composing myself and getting back to work. That evening, I prepared dinner with mechanical precision. Roasted chicken, vegetables, a salad. My father arrived promptly at 7, carrying wine he knew I liked. "This looks wonderful," he said, settling at my small dining table. We ate. We talked about work, about his golf game, about nothing that mattered. I watched him across the table and wondered when he had decided I was not really family. Had it been after my mother died? Had it always been this way, hidden beneath surface affection? The following morning, I arrived at work an hour early. The building was nearly empty, just the security guard and a few warehouse workers starting their shifts. I used my access card to enter the executive floor and walked directly to my father's office. His computer was password protected, but I had watched him type it hundreds of times over the years. Our mother's name and birth year. He had never changed it, even after she died. I logged in. The trust documents were filed in a folder labeled Estate Planning, organized with the same meticulous attention my father applied to everything. I opened the PDF dated 3 months earlier, exactly when the real family chat had begun. The Bradford Family Trust. I read through the legalese with the careful attention my business degree had trained me for. The trust held substantial assets. The company shares, investment properties, liquid accounts. My father had established it 5 years earlier, shortly after my mother's diagnosis, intending to provide for his children after his death. The original document listed 4 beneficiaries: Julian, Marcus, Vincent, and me. Equal shares of 25% each. The amended version, signed and notarized 12 weeks ago, told a different story. Julian, 33%, Marcus, 33%, Vincent, 34%, Bethany, 0%. A note attached to the amendment explained the reasoning. After considerable thought and family discussion, I have decided to distribute trust assets among my sons and brother. Bethany has demonstrated independence and capability that suggests she neither needs nor desires family financial support. This distribution reflects the reality that my sons have families to support and greater financial responsibilities. Greater financial responsibilities. Julian's wife did not work, by choice. Marcus spent money on expensive hobbies and luxury items. Neither struggled, neither sacrificed. I printed the document, returned the computer to its locked state, and left my father's office exactly as I had found it. The security guard nodded at me as I passed. "Early morning, Miss Bethany." "Quarterly reports." I lied smoothly. "Always a busy time." Back in my own office, I sat with the printed trust document and began to plan. The Bethany my father knew would confront him emotionally. She would cry, demand explanations, create the drama he expected. She would make noise that could be dismissed and ignored, but that Bethany had died when I read those messages on his phone. The woman sitting in this office now understood something fundamental about power and revenge. Making noise accomplished nothing. Destroying quietly accomplished everything. I spent the next 2 hours researching, making notes, and forming the skeleton of a plan that would require patience, precision, and absolute commitment. My father had taught me how to run a business. He had shown me how to identify weaknesses in systems and exploit them for profit. He had trained me in strategy and execution. He had created his own destruction. At 9 a.m., I attended the weekly operations meeting. Julian, Marcus, my father, and the department heads gathered in the conference room. I took my usual seat and contributed my usual insights. Nobody noticed anything different about me because nothing visible had changed. Bethany, I need you to handle the Vancouver supplier negotiations next week, my father said as the meeting concluded. They're being difficult about the new contract terms. Of course. Vancouver. Perfect. The beginnings of an idea crystallized. Marcus caught up with me in the hallway afterward. Drinks Friday? Julian and I are meeting some college friends. Can't. I have plans. I did not elaborate. You're always busy lately. Need to make time for family. Family. The word tasted like poison. You're right. I'll try harder. He smiled, satisfied, and returned to his office. I watched him go, tall, confident, completely unaware that his sister had just lied to his face without hesitation. I spent the afternoon calling our Vancouver supplier, a mid-sized pharmaceutical manufacturer that provided 30% of our inventory. The company had been fighting our proposed contract changes for weeks, threatening to find other distributors. My father considered them difficult. I considered them opportunity. This is Bethany from Bradford Distribution, I said when the owner answered. I'd like to discuss a partnership opportunity that might interest you. By the end of the call, I had established the foundation for something my father would never see coming. The supplier wanted better terms. I could provide them, just not through Bradford Distribution. That evening, I met with Diane, my mother's closest friend, and a corporate attorney who had handled various legal matters for our family over the years. We sat in her downtown office with its view of the river, and I explained what I had discovered. Your father removed you from the trust. Diane's expression shifted from friendly to professional. When? 3 months ago. He amended it to exclude me entirely. Did he give you any indication this was happening? None. I found out by accident. Diane leaned back in her chair, studying me. You want to contest the trust amendment? No. I met her gaze steadily. I want to make sure it's legal and binding. I'm not following. I need to know that what my father did was legitimate, that he had the legal right to exclude me, and that the trust amendment will hold up under any scrutiny. Understanding dawned on Diane's face. You're planning something. I'm planning to protect myself. If he can cut me out of the family assets, I need to ensure my own financial security. Through the company? I'd rather not say more. I just need to know the trust is solid. Diane was quiet for a long moment. Your mother would be heartbroken. My mother is dead, and my father made this decision knowing exactly what it meant. Give me a few days. I'll review the trust documents and confirm their validity. She paused. Bethany, whatever you're considering, be very careful. Family businesses are complicated, and revenge can destroy more than you intend. I'm not pursuing revenge, I said. I'm pursuing survival. The Vancouver trip materialized faster than expected. Our supplier's stubbornness had created logistical nightmares that demanded immediate attention, and my father sent me north on Thursday morning with instructions to resolve the contract dispute or find alternative suppliers. I boarded the early flight with my laptop bag and a carefully constructed plan. The supplier's office occupied a converted warehouse in an industrial area outside the city center. Trevor, the owner, greeted me personally, a stocky man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. Your father sent his daughter to do the negotiating, he said as we settled in his office. My father sent his logistics coordinator who understands your business better than anyone else in our company, I replied, and who might be able to offer you something more interesting than what we've been discussing. His eyebrows rose. I'm listening. I spent the next 3 hours laying groundwork. I did not make promises I could not keep. I did not reveal my intentions explicitly. But I asked questions about his capacity, his distribution needs, his frustrations with our company's approach. I learned that Trevor had built his pharmaceutical manufacturing operation from nothing, that he resented being treated as a subordinate supplier, that he wanted partnership rather than servitude. Bradford Distribution has become too comfortable, he said over lunch. Your father treats suppliers like interchangeable parts. No respect for the relationships. What if someone offered you a different model? True partnership with someone who understood both sides of the business? I'd be very interested. He studied me carefully. Are we talking hypothetically? For now. But I believe in being prepared for opportunities. We spent the afternoon finalizing a contract that gave Trevor slightly better terms while maintaining Bradford's profit margins. I had resolved the dispute my father sent me to handle, but I had also planted seeds that would bloom into something he could never anticipate. The flight home. Friday evening gave me time to think. My phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Dinner tomorrow night? Dad wants to celebrate closing the Vancouver deal. I stared at the message. They wanted to celebrate my success while secretly planning my exclusion. They wanted my competence while denying my worth. I typed back. I'll be there. Saturday dinner took place at my father's house, the sprawling property where I had grown up. The dining room table seated 12, though only the 4 of us gathered. My father at the head, Julian and Marcus flanking him, and me across from them. Bethany saved us a significant contract, my father announced, raising his wine glass. To my daughter's negotiating skills. We toasted. I sipped wine and smiled and played the role of grateful daughter while imagining this same scene 6 months from now, after everything had fallen apart for them. Trevor specifically asked for you on all future negotiations, Julian said. Apparently you made quite an impression. I just listened to what he actually needed instead of telling him what he should want, I replied. Novel concept. Marcus laughed. She's got you there, Jules. We do tend to steamroll suppliers. It's business, my father said. Sometimes you have to be firm. Sometimes you have to be smart, I countered. Firm doesn't work if you're creating enemies. Your mother always said you had her diplomatic touch. My father's expression softened momentarily. She'd be proud of how you handled this. I wondered if my mother would be proud of what I was planning. Then I remembered that my mother had loved me unconditionally, had valued me not for what I could provide, but simply because I existed. She would have never excluded me from anything. Speaking of business, Julian said, shifting the conversation. Marcus and I were thinking about the expansion timeline. We should probably accelerate the Portland opening. They discussed strategy while I observed. This was the dynamic that had always existed. My brothers and father making decisions, me contributing where allowed, but never truly included in the core planning. I had accepted it as natural hierarchy, birth order and gender creating inevitable structures. Now I recognized it as the foundation of my exclusion. They had never seen me as equal. They had simply been better at hiding it before. After dinner, I helped clear dishes despite my father's protests. In the kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of family dinner, I allowed myself a moment of genuine grief. Not for what I was losing. I had already lost that. But for what had never truly existed. You okay, sweetheart? My father appeared in the doorway. Just thinking about Mom. She loved these dinners. She did. He moved to stand beside me at the sink. You know she was incredibly proud of you. You were her greatest joy. Was I yours? The question emerged before I could stop it. Of course. Why would you ask that? Just wondering sometimes if having a daughter was what you really wanted, or if you wished for 3 sons instead. Bethany. His voice carried surprise and what seemed like genuine hurt. You're my daughter. That's never been anything but a blessing. I looked at him directly. Good. I'm glad to know that. He squeezed my shoulder, completely missing the edge in my tone, and returned to the dining room. I finished the dishes alone, and when I left an hour later, I hugged my father and brothers with the same affection I had always shown. Sunday, I spent in my apartment with my laptop, building spreadsheets and researching corporate structures. I contacted Diane and asked about the process for establishing an independent distribution company. I reviewed my savings, substantial, carefully accumulated, enough to start small if I planned correctly. Monday morning, I walked into Bradford Distribution at my usual time, smiled at my usual colleagues, and settled into my usual routine. Nobody suspected that the competent, reliable, invisible daughter had transformed into something far more dangerous. The family group chat I was not supposed to know about continued its conversations. I checked my father's phone twice more over the following weeks, always carefully, always leaving no trace. They discussed the trust distribution timeline. They planned how to present it to me. They agreed that I would understand, that I would accept their reasoning, that I would eventually see the logic. They had no idea what was actually coming. 3 weeks after discovering the group chat, I received an email from Diane confirming what I already knew. The trust amendment was legal, properly executed, and completely binding. My father had every right to exclude me, and no court would overturn his decision. I sat in my office reading her message, feeling the last thread of hope, that small, desperate voice suggesting maybe it was a mistake, maybe it could be fixed, finally die. This was intentional. This was permanent. This was my father's explicit choice. Thanks for confirming, I replied. I'm moving forward with the business entity we discussed. Diane responded within minutes. I'll have the paperwork ready by end of week. Are you certain about this? Completely certain. The business entity I had asked Diane to create was a pharmaceutical distribution company called Cascade Supply Partners. I would be the sole owner. The structure was designed to operate independently while remaining small enough to avoid immediate attention from competitors, including my own family's company. I spent my lunch breaks that week in coffee shops across Portland, meeting with industry contacts I had developed over 5 years at Bradford. I asked careful questions about supplier relationships, client needs, and market gaps. I presented myself as exploring opportunities, testing interest, gathering information for academic curiosity. Nobody suspected I was building a competitor to my family's business. On Wednesday evening, Trevor from Vancouver called my personal cell. I've been thinking about our conversation, about different partnership models. I'm glad to hear that. If someone were to start an independent distribution operation focused on equitable supplier relationships and efficient logistics, I'd be interested in being their primary manufacturer. That's good to know, I said carefully. Hypothetically speaking. Bethany, I've been in this industry 30 years. I recognize ambition when I see it, and I respect someone who's willing to build something rather than just inherit it. I made a decision in that moment. I'm establishing a new company. Small scale initially, focusing on the Pacific Northwest market. I'll need a reliable manufacturer who can provide quality products and reasonable terms. You'll have one. When are you launching? 3 months. I need to secure financing and build out initial infrastructure. I can refer you to some suppliers who'd be interested. Good people who are tired of being treated like commodities by the big distributors. I'd appreciate that very much. We talked for another hour, sketching the outline of a partnership that would form the core of Cascade Supply Partners. By the time we hung up, I had commitments for product supply that would support 6 months of operations. Thursday morning, I attended another operations meeting at Bradford. My father discussed quarterly projections. Julian presented expansion updates. Marcus reviewed sales targets. I contributed logistics insights and pretended everything was normal. The Vancouver contract is performing well, my father noted. Trevor specifically requested Bethany handle all future communications with his company. Happy to continue that relationship, I said. What I did not mention was that Trevor and I were already discussing how to transition his Bradford business to Cascade Supply Partners once my company launched. He had agreed to maintain current contracts until I was ready, then gradually shift his distribution partnership to my operation. Friday afternoon, Julian stopped by my office. Got a minute? Sure. What's up? He closed the door and sat across from my desk. I wanted to talk to you about something. Family stuff. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. Okay. Dad's been working on estate planning, making sure everything's organized for the future. Makes sense. There's going to be some changes to how assets are distributed. He's trying to figure out the fairest approach for everyone. Fairest how? Julian shifted uncomfortably. Look, Marcus and I both have families. Kids, mortgages, responsibilities. You're single, you're independent. You've always been so capable on your own. What are you saying? Just that Dad's thinking about who needs support most. It's not about value or love. It's about practical considerations. I leaned back in my chair. Is Dad planning to tell me this himself, or did he send you to prepare me? He'll talk to you. I just wanted to give you a heads up so it's not a complete shock. That's very thoughtful. I kept my voice level. When is he planning this conversation? Soon, maybe next week. Julian stood. I know this might seem unfair, but try to understand where he's coming from. He's trying to take care of everyone. Just not equally. Bethany? It's fine, Julian. Really, I understand completely. He looked relieved. Good. I knew you'd get it. You've always been mature about family stuff. After he left, I sat very still for several minutes. They were preparing to inform me of my exclusion. They believed I would accept it gracefully. They had complete faith that I would absorb this betrayal and continue working for the family company, contributing my skills while receiving nothing in return. I opened my laptop and sent an email to Diane. Move up the timeline. I need Cascade Supply Partners operational in 6 weeks instead of 3 months. She called immediately. 6 weeks is aggressive. Can you handle that pace? I can handle whatever's necessary. What changed? My family is about to officially cut me out of the trust. I want my exit strategy ready before they have the satisfaction of watching me react to the news. Bethany, starting a competing business while still employed at Bradford could be legally complicated. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm preparing for my future after I leave the company. Once I resign and launch Cascade, Bradford can't touch me. They'll see it as betrayal. They betrayed me first. I'm just being smart about the consequences. Diane sighed. I'll push the paperwork through, but you need to be absolutely certain about this path. Once you start, you can't undo the damage to family relationships. Those relationships were damaged the moment my father decided I wasn't real family. I'm just acknowledging reality. The weekend passed in a blur of planning. I met with potential clients, small medical practices and clinics that Bradford considered too minor to prioritize. I offered them better service, more personalized attention, and competitive pricing. By Sunday evening, I had preliminary commitments for enough business to sustain operations through the first quarter. Monday morning, my father requested a meeting in his office. I arrived at 9 a.m., carrying the false assumption that I did not know what was coming. Have a seat, sweetheart. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, the same desk where I had found the trust documents weeks earlier. What did you want to discuss? He folded his hands, wearing the expression he used for difficult business conversations. I've been working on estate planning, making sure everything's organized for when I'm gone. Okay. I've had to make some hard decisions about how to distribute assets fairly. It's not easy balancing everyone's needs. I'm sure it's complicated. Julian and Marcus both have families to support. Children's education, mortgages, future expenses. You're in a different position. Single, independent, no dependents. Are you removing me from the trust? I asked directly. He blinked, surprised by my bluntness. I'm redistributing assets based on need. You've always been so capable, so self-sufficient. I know you'll be fine without family support. Yes, I understand. Bethany, this isn't about love. You know I love you, but not enough to treat me equally with my brothers. It's not about equality. It's about appropriate allocation of resources. I stood. Is there anything else you needed to discuss? I hoped you'd understand my reasoning. I understand perfectly. You've decided your sons deserve financial security, and your daughter deserves nothing. Very clear. That's not fair, my father said, his voice hardening. I've given you opportunities. I've employed you, trained you, provided for you your entire life. Employed me at market rate for work I perform. Trained me to benefit your company. Provided for me as any parent does until their child becomes an adult. None of that is exceptional, Dad. That's basic parenting and business practice. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being accurate. Julian got a car. Marcus got a house down payment. I got praise for not asking for help. I moved toward the door. Thank you for the clarity about where I stand. Bethany, wait. He stood, frustration evident. I expected you to be more mature about this. I am being mature. I'm accepting your decision without argument. What more do you want? Some understanding that I'm trying to be fair to everyone. You're being fair to Julian and Marcus. I'm just everyone else. I opened the door. Is there anything work-related you needed? Or are we done? We're done. His tone had shifted from paternal to cold. I'm disappointed in your attitude. Then we're both disappointed. At least that's equal. I walked out of his office, past my brothers who were standing in the hallway clearly listening, and returned to my own space. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. From rage channeled into purpose. Julian appeared in my doorway 10 minutes later. That went badly. Did it? I thought it was honest. Dad's upset. You basically accused him of favoritism. He basically practiced favoritism. I just named it. Come on, Beth. You had to know this was coming. Single daughter versus married sons with kids. It's practical. It's discriminatory. But you're right. I should have expected it. I met his eyes. Don't worry. I'm not going to make trouble for the family. Good. Because this company is all of our futures. Not all of ours, I said quietly. Just yours. Marcus joined Julian in the doorway. We heard shouting. You okay? Fine. Just having a realistic conversation about my place in this family. Look, we know this sucks, Marcus said. But you're going to be fine. You've got your salary, your career. You don't need the trust money. Need and deserve are different things. Maybe we can talk to Dad about giving you something, Julian offered. Not an equal share, but something. Don't bother. I understand where everyone stands now. I turned back to my computer. I have work to do. They left eventually, though I could hear them talking in low voices outside my office. Let them discuss. Let them think they had won, that I was wounded but manageable. Every assumption they made worked in my favor. I spent the rest of the day finalizing supplier contracts for Cascade Supply Partners. Trevor had introduced me to 3 more manufacturers willing to work with a new distributor who offered partnership rather than domination. I now had product supply secured for 12 months. That evening, I met with my first official employee. Patricia had worked in Bradford's accounting department for 15 years before being passed over for promotion in favor of a younger, less experienced man my father liked better. She had given her notice 2 weeks earlier, planning to move to Seattle for a fresh start. We met at a quiet restaurant on the east side. "Tell me more about this company you're starting," she said after we ordered. "Pharmaceutical distribution, Pacific Northwest focus, commitment to ethical supplier relationships and efficient operations. Small scale initially, but positioned for growth. Competing with Bradford. Operating in spaces Bradford ignores. Different approach, different philosophy. Your father's company." "My former father's company. I'm leaving within the month." Patricia studied me carefully. "This is revenge. This is survival. Revenge is just a beneficial side effect." She smiled slowly. "I'm interested. What position are you offering?" "Chief Financial Officer. Equity stake, competitive salary once we're profitable, ground floor opportunity to build something significant." "I'm in." She extended her hand. "When do I start?" 2 weeks. I need time to finalize infrastructure and prepare for launch." We spent the next 2 hours discussing financial structures, pricing strategies, and operational costs. Patricia was brilliant, detail-oriented, and deeply motivated by the same hunger for recognition that drove me. Bradford had wasted her. Cascade would benefit from her. By the end of the evening, my company had a CFO, a launch date 6 weeks out, and a comprehensive business plan that would position us perfectly to compete with the family business that had rejected me. Wednesday morning, I arrived at Bradford to find an envelope on my desk. Inside was a formal letter from my father, explaining the trust amendment in legal language that made exclusion sound like practical asset management. No apology. No acknowledgement of hurt. Just corporate efficiency applied to family relationships. I filed the letter carefully. Documentation of motivation. That afternoon, I took a long lunch and met with a commercial real estate agent. Cascade needed office and warehouse space. We toured 3 properties, settling on a facility 15 miles from Bradford's location, close enough to compete for clients, far enough to maintain independence. "When do you need possession?" the agent asked. 30 days. Can that be arranged?" "For the right client, absolutely." I signed the lease agreement that evening. Cascade Supply Partners now had physical infrastructure, supplier relationships, initial clients, key personnel, and a founder who understood every vulnerability in her primary competitor's operations. Thursday morning, Julian cornered me in the break room. "Dad's still upset about your reaction." "I'm sure he'll survive the disappointment." "Could you at least pretend to be grateful for everything he has done for you? Could he at least pretend to value me as much as he values you?" I poured coffee, keeping my movements calm. "What do you want, Julian? An apology? Acceptance? What performance will make everyone comfortable?" "I want my sister back. The one who was reasonable and understood family dynamics. That sister believed she was actually part of the family. She was wrong." I headed toward the door. This version of me is much clearer about reality. "You're being selfish." I stopped, turned. Yes, for the first time in my life, I'm prioritizing myself over family loyalty. It's remarkably liberating. "Dad could fire you." "He could, but he won't, because I'm too valuable to operations. That's what makes this especially perfect. I'm useful enough to keep, just not valuable enough to include." I left him standing in the break room and returned to my office, where I spent the afternoon documenting every client relationship I had built, every supplier contact I had developed, every process improvement I had implemented. All information that would transfer with me to Cascade. At 5 p.m., I received a text from Marcus. "Family dinner Sunday. Dad wants to move past this awkwardness." I replied, "I'll be there." One more performance. One more evening of pretending everything was fine, while I finalized the destruction of everything they had built on my exclusion. Sunday dinner was a masterclass in tension disguised as normalcy. My father grilled steaks on the patio. Julian's wife brought a salad. Marcus opened wine. I arrived with dessert and a smile that concealed calculations. "I'm glad you came," my father said when I walked in. "Family is important, regardless of disagreements." "Of course," I replied. Nothing is more important than family. Julian's children ran through the house, noisy and oblivious. His wife, Stephanie, kissed my cheek. "Don't let the boys get you down. You know how they are. Traditional thinking." "Very traditional," I agreed. Marcus clapped my shoulder. "Good to see you're not still mad. We were worried you'd stay upset." "I've had time to think, to understand everyone's perspective." My father looked relieved. "That's my girl. I knew you'd see reason." We ate dinner on the patio, surrounded by the garden my mother had planted years ago. Roses she had tended bloomed along the fence. I remembered helping her prune them, learning the difference between productive cutting and damage. She had taught me that sometimes you have to remove dead wood to encourage new growth. "The expansion is moving faster than projected," Julian said between bites. "We might open the new facility by fall instead of winter." "That's ambitious," I noted. "Logistically challenging with our current staffing. We'll manage, we always do." "What about supplier relationships? Trevor mentioned Bradford's been pushing aggressive terms with several manufacturers." Julian waved dismissively. "They'll accept our terms, or we'll find other suppliers. That's basic negotiation." "What if they walk away?" "They won't. They need us more than we need them." I smiled, saying nothing, thinking about Trevor and 3 other manufacturers who had already committed to Cascade instead of Bradford. Julian's confidence was built on assumptions that were already crumbling. After dinner, my father pulled me aside. "I appreciate you being here. I know the trust situation is difficult." "You made the decision you felt was right," I said carefully. "I can't change that." "No, you can't." He seemed satisfied by my acceptance. "But I want you to know that your future at Bradford is secure. You'll always have a place in the company. As an employee, as a valued team member, that counts for something." "It does," I agreed. "Just not as much as being family." His expression tightened. "You are family. The trust distribution doesn't change that. If you truly believe that, then we're operating with different definitions of family." I touched his arm gently. "But I'm not going to fight you on it. You have the right to distribute your assets however you choose. Thank you for understanding." I left shortly after, hugging everyone with appropriate warmth. In my car, I allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction. They thought I had surrendered. They believed my calm acceptance meant resignation. They had no idea I was counting down to detonation. Monday morning, I submitted my resignation letter to Human Resources. 2 weeks' notice, professional language, no explanation beyond pursuing other opportunities. The HR director called me immediately. "Bethany, is everything okay? Does your father know about this?" "I haven't discussed it with him yet. I wanted to file the paperwork first." "This seems sudden. Is there anything we can do to change your mind?" "No, but thank you for asking." She processed the resignation with obvious reluctance, and within an hour, my father stormed into my office. "What the hell is this?" He waved the resignation letter. "My notice. I'm leaving Bradford." "Why?" "I've decided to pursue opportunities that offer better growth potential." "What opportunities? You haven't been interviewing." "I have plans," I said simply. "This is the right move for my career." "This is about the trust. You're throwing a tantrum." "This is about recognizing that my future here is limited. You've made it clear that I'm an employee, not an owner. So I'm going to find somewhere that values my contributions differently." "You're being ridiculous. Where are you going to find a better position?" "I'll figure it out." My father's face reddened. "You're going to a competitor, aren't you?" You're going to betray this family by working for someone else in the industry. I'm not betraying anyone. I'm making a career decision based on my own interests, exactly like you made a financial decision based on yours. If you go to a competitor, I'll make sure you never work in pharmaceutical distribution again. That would be petty and vindictive, I said calmly, but you're certainly entitled to try. He stared at me, anger and confusion warring across his features. I don't understand you anymore. You never did. You just didn't notice until I stopped pretending. Julian and Marcus appeared in the doorway. What's going on? Julian demanded. Your sister is quitting. Bethany, come on, Marcus said. Don't do this. Don't let pride ruin your career. My pride isn't ruining anything. I'm making a rational choice based on clear evidence about my future here. We can work this out, Julian tried. Talk to Dad. Negotiate something. There's nothing to negotiate. Dad made his decision about my value. I'm making mine about where to invest my time and skills. You're making a mistake, my father said coldly. A serious mistake that you're going to regret. Maybe. But it will be my mistake to make. I spent my final 2 weeks at Bradford documenting processes and transitioning responsibilities. I was professional, thorough, and gave no indication that I was doing anything except preparing for a graceful exit. On my last day, my coworkers threw a small goodbye gathering in the break room. Cake, cards, wishes for success. My family was notably absent. Patricia, still finishing her final week before officially leaving, found me alone in my now empty office that afternoon. Ready? Completely ready. They still have no idea? None. They think I'm going to another company, maybe taking time off. It hasn't occurred to them that I would compete directly. It's going to be nuclear when they find out. That's the idea. We walked out of Bradford Distribution together at 5 p.m. on the last Friday in May. The sun was warm, the sky clear, and my future, terrifying and exhilarating, stretched out ahead. Cascade Supply Partners would officially launch the following Monday. I had spent 6 weeks building infrastructure, securing suppliers, recruiting clients, and preparing for war disguised as business competition. My father had taught me strategy. My mother had taught me patience. My brothers had taught me that loyalty meant nothing if it was not reciprocated. Now I would teach all of them what happened when you underestimated the person you had decided was not real family. The weekend before launch, I received one final text from the group chat I was never supposed to see. Marcus had written, "Bethany's gone. Good riddance to the drama." Julian replied, "She'll come crawling back when she can't find another job." My father's response, "Let her learn the hard way. Maybe she'll appreciate what she had here." Vincent added, "Family business is better without the emotional complications." I took a screenshot, saved it, and deleted the notification. Evidence of their complete blindness to what was actually happening. Monday morning, I stood in Cascade's small warehouse, watching Patricia finalize inventory systems and our first shipment being loaded onto trucks. My phone rang. Trevor, from Vancouver. "First order is shipping today. Welcome to business ownership, Bethany. Thank you for believing in this." "I'm not believing in the business. I'm believing in you. Big difference." The trucks rolled out at 9 a.m., carrying pharmaceuticals to 6 different clinics that had quietly shifted their orders from Bradford to Cascade. Small accounts, barely noticeable in Bradford's portfolio, but enough to fund operations and prove the model worked. By noon, I had confirmation that all 6 deliveries had been successful. By 3 p.m., 2 more clinics had requested information about switching to Cascade. My phone buzzed with a call from Julian. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Again, I ignored it. The 3rd time, I answered. "Yes? What the hell did you do?" "I started a business," I said calmly. "Is there a problem?" "You started a competing business, using our suppliers, stealing our clients." I started an independent business using suppliers who chose to work with me and clients who prefer my service model. Nothing was stolen, Julian. They made choices. This is betrayal. After everything this family has done for you. After everything this family has done to me, I corrected. Let's be precise about the sequence of events here. Dad wants to talk to you, now. I'm busy running my company. He can schedule a meeting like any other business contact. Bethany, this is serious. You're attacking the family business. I'm operating a legitimate competitor. If Bradford can't handle competition, that sounds like a Bradford problem. I ended the call. 5 minutes later, my father called. I answered on the 4th ring. What do you think you're doing? His voice shook with rage. Building a pharmaceutical distribution company, Cascade Supply Partners. We officially launched today. Using information you stole from Bradford. Using relationships you developed while employed here. Using knowledge I earned through years of work and relationships I built through professional competence. All of which belongs to me, not to Bradford. I'll sue you for breach of contract, for theft of trade secrets. Please do. I'd love to have Diane explain in court how you have no case. I signed no non-compete agreement. I took no proprietary information. I developed relationships through my own work, which I'm entitled to maintain after employment ends. Silence. Then, why are you doing this? You cut me out of the family trust. You made it clear I'm not really part of this family. So I'm building my own future, exactly like you told me I needed to. This is vindictive and childish. This is strategic and necessary. You taught me that business is about recognizing opportunities and acting decisively. I'm applying your lessons. You're destroying family relationships over money. You destroyed family relationships when you decided your daughter wasn't worth the same consideration as your sons. I'm just responding appropriately to that reality. If you continue this, you'll never be welcome in this family again. I stopped being welcome when you created a group chat called Real Family and excluded me from it. I'm just accepting what you already decided. I hung up. Patricia appeared in the office doorway. I heard shouting. Your family? Former family. They've discovered Cascade exists. How bad is it going to get? Much worse before it gets better, but that's fine. I planned for worse. The rest of the week proceeded exactly as I had anticipated. My father called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that escalated from angry to threatening to almost pleading. Julian sent texts demanding I shut down Cascade immediately. Marcus tried the concerned brother approach, suggesting I was having some kind of breakdown. I ignored all of them and focused on business. By Friday, Cascade had secured 12 client accounts, small clinics and practices that Bradford had neglected, but collectively representing substantial revenue. More importantly, word was spreading through the medical community about a new distributor that actually paid attention to client needs. Saturday morning, I met with 3 doctors who ran a small practice consortium. They controlled purchasing for 15 clinics across the Portland metro area. Bradford has been our distributor for 8 years, the lead doctor said. But their service has declined significantly. Orders are late, customer support is terrible, and they treat us like we should be grateful for their attention. Cascade's model is different, I explained. We prioritize relationships over volume. Every client matters, regardless of order size. We've heard you worked at Bradford, that you're the owner's daughter. I worked there for 5 years. I learned what not to do. He smiled. When can you start serving our facilities? As soon as you're ready to transition. We signed a contract that afternoon. 15 clinics, significant monthly volume, a 3-year commitment. Cascade's revenue projections had just doubled. I celebrated alone in my apartment that evening with takeout and satisfaction. The damage to Bradford was accelerating. Losing one daughter was unfortunate. Losing substantial business to that daughter was catastrophic. Sunday evening, my Uncle Vincent called. I had not heard from him since discovering the trust amendment. Your father is beside himself. Vincent said without preamble. "This needs to stop." "Uncle Vincent, how nice to hear from you. How's being part of the real family?" "Don't be dramatic. This is business." "Exactly. It's business. My business, competing fairly with Bradford's business. You're hurting people who love you. People who love me would have treated me like family instead of an expendable employee. You were part of the decision to exclude me, Vincent. You voted for my removal from the trust. Because it made financial sense. Julian and Marcus have families. And I have ambition, competence, and a remarkable tolerance for being underestimated, which is working out very well for me. Your father made you who you are. You owe him loyalty. My father made a choice about my worth. I'm simply accepting his valuation and building accordingly. He's talking about legal action. Let him try. I've done nothing illegal, and any lawsuit would only publicize how badly Bradford treats both family and clients." Vincent was quiet for a moment. "You've changed." "No. I've just stopped pretending that being agreeable would earn me respect. Turns out taking what I deserve works better than hoping someone will give it to me." Monday morning, Trevor called with news. 2 more manufacturers want to talk to you about partnership agreements. Word is spreading that you're doing business differently. How quickly can we expand capacity? I can increase production by 30% within 6 weeks. The other manufacturers can help fill gaps. Do it. Cascade is growing faster than projected. By the end of the 2nd week, we had 22 client accounts and commitments from 4 major suppliers. Patricia had hired 2 additional staff members. I had signed a lease on expanded warehouse space. Bradford, meanwhile, was bleeding. The 3rd week after Cascade's launch, Julian appeared at my office unannounced. He walked past our small reception area and stood in my doorway looking exhausted. "We need to talk," he said. "You need an appointment." "Bethany, please, 5 minutes." I gestured to a chair. He sat, and I noticed the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. "Bradford lost the Practice Consortium account," he said. 15 clinics. We just found out they switched to you. They preferred our service model. Our revenue is down 18% this month. Dad is furious. Marcus is panicking. Our suppliers are questioning whether to renew contracts. Sounds like a challenging business environment. You're destroying us. I'm competing with you. There's a difference. Julian leaned forward. "What do you want? Money? An apology? Tell me what it takes to end this." "I want you to understand something fundamental," I said quietly. "You and Marcus and Dad decided I wasn't real family. You excluded me from the trust, dismissed my value, and expected me to accept it gracefully. So I did accept it, by leaving and building my own success. We made a mistake. Dad admits that now. Does he admit it because he's genuinely sorry, or because I'm costing him money?" Julian hesitated. "Both. Not good enough. You don't get to value me only when I'm useful or threatening. Either I matter inherently, or I don't matter at all. You chose the second option. Now deal with the consequences." "So, this is permanent? You're just going to keep attacking Bradford until we collapse?" "I'm going to keep building Cascade until it's the dominant distributor in the Pacific Northwest. What happens to Bradford depends on whether you can compete effectively. With you using everything you learned from us against us. With me using everything I earned through my own work to build something better. Important distinction." Julian stood. "He wants to meet with you, all of us together, to discuss options." "There's nothing to discuss. But I'll meet with him if he wants. Wednesday, 2 p.m., neutral location. Choose a coffee shop downtown. He'll want to meet at his office. Then he'll be disappointed. I don't work for Bradford anymore. I don't follow his schedule or show up at his locations. Equal footing or no meeting. I'll tell him." After Julian left, Patricia came in. That looked tense. They're starting to understand the situation is real. "Are you going to negotiate?" "I'm going to listen to what they offer and reject it. This isn't about reaching an agreement. It's about making them understand that their decisions have permanent consequences. Wednesday afternoon, I arrived at a coffee shop in the Pearl District exactly at 2 p.m. My father, Julian, Marcus, and Vincent were already seated at a corner table. I ordered coffee and joined them. "Thank you for coming," my father said stiffly. "You have 30 minutes. What did you want to discuss?" "We want to offer you a deal. Come back to Bradford. We'll make you a partner, give you equity, include you in major decisions." "And the trust?" "We can discuss amendments." "Amendments, not equal distribution, but some token amount to appease me?" "A fair amount based on—" "Stop," I interrupted. "Let me be very clear. I have zero interest in returning to Bradford in any capacity. I have my own company, which is profitable, growing, and positioned to overtake your market share within 18 months. "That's unrealistic," Marcus said. "You're too small. I was too small 3 weeks ago. Now I have 22 accounts, 5 supplier partnerships, and aggressive expansion plans. In 6 months, I'll have 50 accounts. In a year, 100. Bradford's business model is outdated. Your client service is terrible, and your supplier relationships are exploitative. I'm offering better alternatives, and the market is responding." "We can improve," Julian argued. "We can match whatever you're offering. You're a large, established company with entrenched practices and my father's ego-driving decisions. You can't pivot fast enough to compete with a lean, hungry operation that's built specifically to exploit your weaknesses." My father's face had gone red. "So, what do you want? To watch us fail?" "I want you to understand what you did. You looked at your 3 children and decided one of them didn't matter. You created a group chat called Real Family and excluded the person who had worked hardest to earn her place. You made me understand that biology doesn't guarantee value and loyalty doesn't guarantee reciprocation." "We made a mistake," Vincent said. "Can't you accept that and move forward? You made a choice. Choices have consequences. This is yours." I stood. 25 minutes. I'm being generous with your time. "Bethany, wait." My father stood as well. "Please, can't we find some resolution that doesn't destroy everything? You destroyed it when you amended the trust. I'm just making sure the destruction is distributed equally." I picked up my coffee. "Good luck with your business challenges." I walked out, leaving them sitting in stunned silence. That evening, Diane called. "I heard about the meeting. How did it go?" "Exactly as planned. They're desperate, scared, and finally understanding that I'm serious. Your father's attorney contacted me. They're considering legal action based on unfair competition claims. Let them file. We both know they have no case. It would be expensive in public." "Good. I want it public. I want everyone to know that Bradford Distribution excluded the daughter who built half their operational efficiency, and that she responded by building a better company." "You're not interested in reconciliation at all, are you?" "They're interested in stopping their business losses. I'm interested in permanent consequences for permanent choices. Those aren't compatible goals." 3 months after Cascade's launch, I stood in my expanded office reviewing quarterly reports. The numbers exceeded even my optimistic projections. 53 client accounts, 7 supplier partnerships, 23 employees. Revenue growth that had attracted attention from investors interested in funding further expansion. Bradford, meanwhile, was struggling. Industry reports showed they had lost 28% of their client base. 2 major suppliers had terminated contracts. Employee morale was declining as word spread about the company's financial troubles. My phone rang. My father's number. I had not spoken to any family member since the coffee shop meeting. I answered. "Hello." "Bethany." His voice sounded older, tired. "I need to talk to you about something important." "I'm listening." "Julian wants to leave Bradford. He's been offered a position with a competitor in Seattle. Marcus is considering selling his shares. The company is falling apart." "That sounds difficult," This was my life's work, my father's before me. 3 generations of family business, and it's collapsing because you couldn't accept a business decision. Because I couldn't accept being excluded from my own family, I corrected. Business decisions and family decisions aren't the same thing. You treated them as equivalent. You were wrong. What will it take to end this? Name your terms. There are no terms. Cascade isn't about Bradford anymore. It's about building something excellent that happens to compete with you. If Bradford fails, it fails because you couldn't adapt, not because I destroyed you. You took everything I taught you and used it as a weapon against me. You taught me that competence matters, that strategy wins, that sentiment is weakness in business. I'm applying every lesson perfectly. I never taught you to betray family. You taught me that I wasn't really family. That was the most important lesson of all. Silence stretched between us. Then, your mother would be ashamed of you. My mother would have never excluded me from the trust. She would have never created a secret group chat about real family. She would have loved all her children equally and treated them fairly. My voice remained steady. You don't get to invoke her memory to manipulate me. She's dead, and you made these choices alone. I'm sorry, he said finally. I made a terrible mistake with the trust. I was wrong about how to handle the distribution. I should have talked to you. Should have considered your feelings. That's a good apology. Unfortunately, it comes about 6 months too late, and only after I've become a genuine threat to your business. What would have been the right timing? Before you amended the trust. During the family discussion I was never invited to. Any point when you actually valued my input, rather than assuming my compliance. Can we fix this? The trust? That's a legal question for your attorney. Our relationship? That's broken permanently. Bradford's market position? That's a competitive business challenge. Which one are you actually asking about? All of them. Then here's my answer. I don't care about the trust anymore. I make my own money now. I don't care about our relationship because you proved it was conditional. And I care about Bradford only as a competitor I intend to surpass completely. That's comprehensive enough? He was quiet for so long I thought he had hung up. Then, I never wanted this. You wanted a family structure that prioritized your sons and excluded your daughter. You got exactly what you wanted. Everything that followed was just logical consequences. Julian said you're planning to expand into Washington and Oregon territories. We've already expanded. Cascade now operates in 4 states with plans for California by next quarter. You're going national. Eventually, we have investor interest and market demand. Turns out people like working with a distributor that treats them like partners rather than revenue sources. That was always Bradford's approach. Bradford's approach was your approach. Efficient, profitable, and completely transactional. It worked for decades. But markets evolve, and you didn't. I did. So you're just going to keep growing until Bradford is irrelevant. I'm going to keep growing until Cascade is the dominant pharmaceutical distributor on the West Coast. What happens to Bradford is your problem to solve. Another long silence. I lost my daughter. You gave away your daughter. I just accepted the gift and built something better with the freedom you provided. I ended the call. Patricia found me an hour later, still sitting at my desk. You okay? My father called. Bradford is failing. He wanted to know what it would take to make me stop. What did you tell him? That there is no stopping. Cascade's success is independent of Bradford's failure. We're just better at what we do. Are you satisfied with how this turned out? I considered the question carefully. Satisfaction implied completion, and this was far from complete. Bradford was wounded but still operating. My family was fractured but still together, minus me. The revenge was effective but ongoing. I'm content, I said finally. Content with building something excellent. Content with proving my value through success rather than waiting for recognition. Content with the knowledge that every person who underestimated me is now watching me succeed. That's a very diplomatic way of saying yes, you're satisfied. I smiled. I'm my father's daughter. Diplomacy is just strategy with better vocabulary. 6 months after that conversation, Bradford Distribution filed for bankruptcy protection. Years of market loss, supplier defections, and operational problems had finally overwhelmed the company's resources. My father sold the business assets to a larger competitor and retired, publicly citing health reasons, but privately acknowledging defeat. Julian took the Seattle position. Marcus went into real estate. Vincent invested in a completely different industry. The family business that had spanned 3 generations ended, not with celebration, but with quiet dissolution and mutual blame. Throughout Bradford's collapse, none of them ever acknowledged that it began when they decided their daughter and sister was not real family. They blamed market forces, bad timing, and competitive pressures. They never admitted that their own cruelty had created their most dangerous competitor. I attended Bradford's final day of operations, watching from across the street as the last employees cleared out their desks. No satisfaction, just recognition that cycles complete. My father had built something from nothing. I had learned from watching him. Then I had built something better, from the pieces of what he had destroyed. Cascade Supply Partners continued to grow, expanding throughout the western United States and establishing the reputation I had envisioned: ethical, efficient, excellent. We treated suppliers like partners, clients like priorities, and employees like assets worth developing. Everything Bradford had failed to do, we did better. My father reached out twice more over the following year. Once to congratulate me on a profile in a trade publication, once to ask if we could have coffee and talk about nothing important. I declined both times, kindly but firmly. Some bridges, once burned, should stay as ash in memory. The family trust that had started everything was eventually distributed according to the amended terms. Julian, Marcus, and Vincent each received their portions. I received nothing, exactly as planned. By that point, my personal net worth exceeded what any trust distribution would have provided. I had made my own fortune, built my own legacy, and proved definitively that being excluded from the family only meant I was free to exceed them. My brothers tried to reconnect several times. Holiday messages, birthday texts, invitations to nephews' events. I responded politely but distantly. They were people I used to know, connected by biology and history but not by present relationship. The group chat called Real Family still existed, I assumed. I would never know, and I no longer cared. The consequences for those who had dismissed me were exactly what I had intended. My father lost his company and his daughter, learning too late that conditional love creates conditional loyalty. Julian and Marcus lost their inheritance's security, the family business they had expected to sustain them, and a sister who might have been their ally if they had treated her as equal. Vincent lost his investment and his position, collateral damage to someone else's cruelty. As for me, I had built an empire from spite and strategy, proved that being underestimated was simply opportunity in disguise, and learned that the best revenge was not destruction, but surpassing. Being so successful that their exclusion became their loss, rather than mine. Standing in Cascade's headquarters 3 years after that morning when I found the group chat, I understood something fundamental about family and worth. They had taught me I was not real family. I had taught them that real success required no permission, no inclusion, and no forgiveness. Just competence, determination, and the willingness to build something better from the ashes of rejection. The revenge was never really about destroying Bradford. It was about creating something so undeniably excellent that every person who had excluded me would spend the rest of their lives knowing they had given away someone irreplaceable. That knowledge, permanent and inescapable, was the only consequence that truly mattered. And I had earned it, one strategic decision at a time, by being exactly as capable as they had always feared.